over the weekend, Donald Trump unexpectedly signed the $900 billion coronavirus relief bill. And that was less than 48 hours before certain relief programs were set to expire. But Trump still waited too long because unemployment benefits did lapse, which means that some individuals who rely on unemployment might have to wait an additional week in order to get the newly appropriated funds for the unemployment program. Now, what's interesting here is he had some pretty strong statements in regard to how he demanded that Congress take out appropriations for various parts of the spending bill, which, of course, was attached to this coronavirus relief bill. And that included various foreign aid programs and things like that. And he also demanded that Congress provide more funding in regard to direct checks to Americans. He wanted $2,000. Well, he didn't get any of that. He got none of that. But he was somehow convinced to sign the legislation into law. And so what happened behind the scenes? Well, we found out through Axios that the deal was closed on a Sunday afternoon phone call with Trump, Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin, and House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy. "This is good," Trump finally said. An official familiar with the call told me, "I should sign this." Now, again, this is according to Mike Allen over at Axios. We also learned that Mnuchin and McCarthy, aided by Senator Lindsey Graham, who golfed with Trump in West Palm Beach on Friday — by the way, he's still golfing today — indulged the president's rants, told him there was great stuff in the bill, and gave him wins he could announce, even though they didn't change the bill. So the bill is exactly the same. There is no additional funding for direct checks to Americans. The unemployment benefits will only last for 11 weeks as opposed to 16 weeks. That was the initial amount of time that was being negotiated during the beginning of these talks. And so Trump did say this in a statement, though. "The Senate will start the process for a vote that increases checks to $2,000, repeals Section 230, and starts an investigation into voter fraud. Big tech must not get protections of Section 230. Voter fraud must be fixed. Much more money is coming. I will never give up my fight for the American people." Now, let me just note that the House, as we speak right now, is voting on $2,000 checks, not the Senate. The Senate is unlikely to pass that type of legislation. And Section 230 is it's all part of this grudge that Trump has against tech companies, social media platforms that have fact-checked him a little bit during the election. He wants to do away with any type of liability shield they have in regard to how users post on their platforms. But other than that, the important takeaway here is he got convinced by GOP lawmakers that he needs to sign this bill, that they'll go ahead and do what he wants after he signs the bill. And of course, he's not going to get any of the concessions that he's demanding, which we'll talk about a little more in a little more detail in just a second. But Cenk, why don't you jump in?
All right, there are a number of reasons why I love this story. Number one is the utter humiliation of Donald Trump, and what a fool he is. I'll get into that in 1 second. Number two is now MAGA has turned on him. They're like, "How could you do this? I thought we were going to hurt everyone in the country. Now you don't even want to hurt them. Now you went along with the other people in Washington. We were going to just crush their souls, and you won't let us do it. We hate you." So he created this alternate reality that somehow he could veto this thing and get to a better result that MAGA would be happy with. And now that alternative reality has turned around and bit him in the ass. I'm going to get into that in a second as well. So, in fact, let me just do it now because it's so much fun. Raheem Kassam is apparently some MAGA dude. And he says, this is part of the humiliation that I love. Quote, "If you want someone to blame, look no further than congressional Republicans, including Kevin McCarthy and Lindsey Graham, for misrepresenting the facts to the president over this weekend." But wait a minute. Doesn't Trump deserve some degree of credit for not knowing that you can't change a bill after you sign it into law? You need a whole new bill to present to Congress. It has to pass, and then you have to sign it. There's no way in the world that you have time to do that in the 3 weeks that you have left, and they're about to go away for a break in a couple of days. Like these concessions that Trump thinks he got. He's like, "Oh, they're going to look into the voter fraud. That's terrible." Right after he signed it, the Democrats are like, no, you moron. We're not going to do any of that. Why would we do that, you idiot? And he's like, and MAGA starts to cry. And they're like, oh my God, how can you do this, Trump? Okay. And so he doesn't know anything, Anna. Okay, but I got to go back to one other thing, and then we'll fill in all of the details. But another conservative complained, Will Chamberlain, he says, there is no line item veto. So I don't know why Trump is talking about redlining things. He said, well, I know why, because he's an idiot. 4 years into being president, he doesn't know that you can't redline items as president. You either sign it or you veto it. He doesn't know that if you wanted the $2,000 checks, which we all do want, you're supposed to enter the negotiations earlier instead of sending crazy tweets about the Kraken and not paying attention. And he just has no earthly idea how the government works after 4 years of being the president of the United States. No, you schmuck. McCarthy and Lindsey Graham obviously lied to you because they think you're a baby. They're like, yes, baby Trump. Yes, baby. We'll come, but we'll do all those priorities afterwards, Donnie. Of course we will. Oh, we'll pass it right away, Donnie. And you think, okay. And then once he signs it, they're like, yeah, schmuck. All right. And they're done with it.
Yeah, I mean, in one of his statements following signing the actual legislation, Trump was quoted as saying, I will sign the omnibus and COVID package with a strong message that makes clear to Congress that wasteful items need to be removed. Let me be clear, those wasteful items will not be removed. There's bipartisan support for those wasteful items. And I think what's made those wasteful items even more, I guess, disgusting in the eyes of Americans is now that it's attached to a coronavirus relief bill, people can really see how congressional lawmakers prioritize things. So at a time of crisis, it really doesn't make sense to spend, tens of millions of dollars toward, military infrastructure for countries like Israel, for instance, right? Maybe we put a hold on that kind of spending to ensure that we help Americans who are falling deeper and deeper into poverty right now. I mean, the $600 checks are definitely an insult. And I just got word right now that the House has voted in favor of increasing the direct checks from $600 to $2,000. So that is a standalone bill that Democrats have voted in favor of. But that means that it's now going to travel to the Senate. And we have some clue as to how Mitch McConnell is going to handle it. Mitch McConnell didn't even want to provide any relief to Americans, especially in the form of direct checks. And so I don't know what motivates Trump, right? I'm not going to try to psychoanalyze him. I don't know why he flies off the handle. One day decides that he's going to promote something that's actually tremendously popular, tremendously definitely needed, tremendously needed. He's rubbing off on me in the way he speaks. Dude. But you get what I'm saying, right? But right now, what Democrats have done in the House is actually perfect because they have passed this bill. They do want more funding in the form of direct checks to Americans. And now it's really up to Senate Republicans to do the right thing and provide the aid that Americans across the board, regardless of political ideology, desperately need right now. And this could really hurt both Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue in the Senate runoff races in Georgia. So.
Okay, so look, I love to mock Trump. Let's keep it real, because he amply deserves it. And if you're MAGA, you've seen me do that to you too. But I just need folks to focus for a second, right? So how could he not know that you can't redline a bill as a president? That's point one.
Because he's never needed to know anything, Cenk. Think about how much Trump has been able to skirt by on knowing nothing, on being incompetent. I mean, both in business and also in governance, right? He's been able to just simply hire lawyers, hire people who can find loopholes in laws regarding businesses, and he's able to get by. With government, he's had so many enablers surrounding him at all times. And the ability he has to really resonate with Republican voters, for better or worse, has also helped to carry him through this entire first term without having to know a damn thing about governing, about our government. And so, yeah, it doesn't surprise me at all. Of course he doesn't know.
The second thing is the things that he redlined were his own proposals, but he's too lazy. He never bothered to ask people inside his government, the people who are actually president, are Jared Kushner and Steve Mnuchin. Kushner does most of the foreign policy and does the internal palace intrigue. Mnuchin does most of the domestic policy. So Mnuchin was part of the negotiations, but Trump didn't bother to ask him about any of the details. So he's like, look at this outrageous proposal here. They're like, Mr. President, this is really embarrassing, but that's your proposal. He's like, no, it's not. Mnuchin's like, Jesus Christ, man, just ask me. I'm the one doing the negotiation, theoretically on your behalf. He doesn't know anything. But all of that is proved amply by his bluff. He's like, oh, that's it. I want Section 230. I want $2,000 checks, even though I never asked for it earlier when we were negotiating it, including my representatives. I never asked for it because I'm incredibly lazy and incredibly stupid. But now that it's too late, I'm going to bluff. And now everyone can understand this. I'm not going to sign it, okay? I'm not going to sign it unless you give me the $2,000 and Section 230 and whatever else I want, right? They're like, yeah, no, you will. And then he's like, okay, fine, I will. They called your bluff so easy. That's why MAGA's so mad right now. You go online, they're like, this is so weak. Why did he do that? What's the strategy? Because, dude, he doesn't have 3-dimensional chess. He doesn't have 4-dimensional chess. He doesn't have 2 or 1-dimensional chess. I guarantee you he could barely play checkers in real life. So he's like, okay, I'm all in. Okay, never mind. I want my money back. I'm so sorry. I fold. And now they're like furious at him for folding. And they're like, what was his strategy? Knuckleheads. He never had a strategy. The whole time, doesn't know a thing about government. So he got clowned. And I love it, and I'm here for it, because on his way out the door, even some of the most hardcore MAGA guys are like, wait, is he an idiot? Yes, finally you get it.